Have you ever crossed paths with someone whose name you didn't recognize, only to find out later they were a living legend? On a rainy Tuesday evening in Tampa, a teenager named Dylan, working his very first job as a pizza delivery boy, was simply trying to get through his shift. He had no idea that the next delivery would change his life and reveal a side of Tom Brady that few have ever seen. Tom Brady, 7-time Super Bowl champion, the greatest quarterback of all time. But behind the stadium lights, the endorsements, and the roaring crowds, there's a quieter version of Brady, a man shaped by his values, his family, and small moments that never make the headlines. This is not a story about touchdowns or trophies. It's about what happens when fame is stripped away and human kindness takes its place. Tonight, you'll hear a story that begins with a simple pizza delivery and ends with an emotional encounter that left a lasting impact, not just on Dylan, but on Tom Brady himself. As we journey through this unforgettable moment, you'll see Brady in a new light. You'll feel the weight of his silence, the warmth of his gesture, and the meaning behind a few simple words that would stay with a young man forever. So stay with us until the end, because what you're about to hear may just change the way you see Tom Brady. Forever. It was a humid Florida afternoon, the kind that made everything stick, from the air to the cardboard pizza boxes stacked in the back of Dylan's beat-up sedan. At 17, Dylan had just started working part-time for a small pizzeria in South Tampa. He wasn't thinking about football legends or celebrity encounters. He was thinking about gas money, his mom's overdue bills, and trying to get home before midnight to study for a math test he was already dreading. The order was simple: a large cheese pizza and a bottle of water, prepaid online. The address, however, was tucked away in a gated community near Davis Islands, a place Dylan had only seen from a distance, usually while daydreaming during rides with his mom past the waterfront mansions. As he approached the gate, he stammered through the intercom, expecting a hassle, but the voice on the other end simply said, "Come on in, gate's open." No name, no fuss, just calm, direct. He followed the winding road until he reached a sleek, modern house with no visible number, just a single porch light on. The kind of house that made him sit up a little straighter and smooth down his wrinkled polo shirt. Dylan walked up, pizza in hand, rehearsing his standard line. "Large cheese and water, sir. Enjoy your meal." But when the door opened, he froze for a split second. The man in front of him was familiar. Too familiar. But Dylan couldn't place him. Baseball cap pulled low, plain gray hoodie, soft voice. "Thanks, man," the stranger said, grabbing the box with a smile. And that was it. No tip, no fanfare, just a smile and a soft, "Thanks." As Dylan walked back to the car, he shook his head. There was something about that man, the way he spoke, the look in his eyes. He couldn't shake it, but there was no time to dwell. The next delivery was already waiting. The next day, Dylan returned to the pizzeria for his usual evening shift. As he was wiping down the counter, his coworker Tony, a die-hard football fan and proud Boston transplant, scrolled through his phone with his mouth hanging open. "Dude," Tony said, not looking up, "you'll never believe who ordered from us yesterday." Dylan shrugged. "Some guy in Davis Islands. Looked kind of familiar, but..." "That was Tom freaking Brady!" Tony nearly shouted, slapping the counter. Dylan blinked. "Wait, what?" Tony spun his phone around. There, on a local blog, was a blurry shot of Brady in front of the same house Dylan had just visited. The article mentioned that Tom had quietly returned to Tampa for a few days, laying low while preparing for a youth football charity event he'd agreed to coach. Dylan's heart thudded. That calm voice, that easy smile. It was him. He didn't know whether to laugh or kick himself. He'd delivered pizza to Tom Brady and hadn't even realized it. No selfie, no autograph, no tip. But honestly, who cared? The rest of the evening was a blur. Dylan's thoughts kept circling back to that short, quiet moment. He couldn't stop replaying it in his mind. What if he had known? Would he have acted differently? Would it have felt less human? That night, he lay awake thinking about the encounter. Not because he missed an opportunity to meet a celebrity, but because Tom Brady hadn't acted like one. There was no air of superiority, no entourage, no attempt to impress. Just a man, alone, eating pizza like anyone else. It struck Dylan in a way he couldn't explain. He'd always seen fame as something unreachable, something that separated them from us. But now, that wall felt thinner. And there was one more thing Dylan couldn't stop thinking about. Brady had looked tired. Not physically, but in his eyes. The kind of tired that came from carrying things nobody else could see. It was the first time Dylan realized that maybe the greatest quarterback of all time was, in that quiet moment, just another guy trying to get through his day, same as him. 2 days later, fate did something unexpected. It was a slow afternoon, and Dylan was out making deliveries again, this time closer to the waterfront. As he pulled into a convenience store to grab a quick soda between orders, he noticed a black SUV parked outside. The driver door opened, and out stepped the same man from the other night. No hoodie this time, just a t-shirt and sunglasses, but unmistakable. It was Tom Brady. For a split second, Dylan debated staying in the car. What was he supposed to say? Hey, I brought you a pizza once? But something inside him stirred. Not fanboy excitement, but a quiet urge to say something real. He stepped out. Hey, Dylan said awkwardly. I think I delivered to you the other night. Brady turned. There was a moment of pause before his face softened with recognition. From the pizza place? He asked, genuinely surprised. Yeah, Dylan replied, suddenly unsure if this had been a good idea. Brady smiled. That was a good pie. They both chuckled. It wasn't much, but in that small exchange, something shifted. Brady asked Dylan how long he'd been delivering if he liked the job. Dylan, still a bit starstruck, talked about saving up for community college, trying to help his mom, figuring out what came next. Brady listened, not nodded, not smiled politely. He listened. And when Dylan asked him why he'd chosen Tampa, expecting a rehearsed answer about the team or the weather, Brady paused, then said something that stuck with him. Sometimes you leave everything you know to find out who you are without it. It was quiet, unassuming, but heavy. Dylan didn't know what Brady meant exactly, but he could feel it was real. Before they parted, Brady pulled something from his back pocket, a folded envelope. You forgot your tip, he said with a wink, handing it over. And just like that, he got back in his SUV and drove off, leaving Dylan standing by the store, envelope in hand. Heart pounding. Dylan sat in his car, staring at the envelope. His hands were trembling a little, not from excitement, but from something deeper, something he couldn't name. He thought about opening it right there in the parking lot, but something told him to wait. He tucked it into his backpack and finished the rest of his shift in a strange daze, barely remembering the addresses or the conversations. His mind kept drifting back to Brady's words. Sometimes you leave everything you know to find out who you are without it. That night, once home and alone in his small bedroom, he finally unfolded the envelope. Inside was a crisp $100 bill, but that wasn't what made his breath catch. Alongside the money was a handwritten note, short and slightly messy, but unmistakably personal. I was just a backup once too. Keep showing up. You never know what's coming. Tom Dylan read it twice, then again, and again. There was something in that message that hit him harder than any motivational quote or locker room speech. Because this wasn't a poster or a video clip, this was real, from a man who had lived it. Tom Brady, the same guy who was once told he'd never make it, who was drafted 199th, who sat on the bench behind Drew Bledsoe, had handed him a message that wasn't about football at all. It was about life, about perseverance, about believing in yourself before anyone else does. Dylan sat on the edge of his bed, holding that note like it was something sacred. And in that moment, he decided he wouldn't settle. Not in school, not in work, not in how he saw himself. Because if someone like Tom Brady saw something in him, even for a moment, maybe, just maybe, it was there all along. In the weeks that followed, life didn't magically transform for Dylan. He still delivered pizzas. He still struggled with school and worried about bills. But something inside had changed. He carried Brady's note with him everywhere, folded neatly in his wallet like a secret promise. On bad days, he'd take it out and read it again. Not for the money, not even for the signature, but for the reminder that someone who had been there believed in pushing through the noise. And it wasn't just inspiration, it became action. Dylan started waking up earlier, studying harder, saving every dollar. He applied for local scholarships and signed up for night classes at the community college. The same streets he used to drive without much thought now felt different, as if each delivery was a step toward something bigger. One afternoon, while dropping off pizzas at a youth center in East Tampa, he overheard a group of middle school kids arguing about who was better, Brady or Mahomes. Dylan chuckled. It was the same debate he used to have with Tony back at the pizzeria. One of the boys looked up and asked, "You like Tom Brady?" Dylan paused, then smiled. "Yeah," he said. "I met him once. He changed how I see everything." He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. The truth was, Tom Brady hadn't done anything flashy. No viral moment, no grand gesture, just a slice of time, a small envelope, and a few words scribbled in ink. But they were enough to echo across someone's entire path. Dylan had always thought heroes wore jerseys and won trophies. Now he knew better. Sometimes a real hero hands you a pizza, listens without judgment, and gives you hope when you didn't even ask for it. That was the lesson. And it was one he would carry, not for the fame, not for the story, but for the quiet strength it gave him when no one else was watching. Nearly a year had passed since that day outside the convenience store. Dylan had moved on from the pizza shop, juggling night classes and part-time shifts at a local gym. The hustle hadn't stopped, but neither had his drive. One evening, while volunteering at a charity event hosted by the Boys and Girls Club of Tampa Bay, he was assigned to the check-in table. The guest list included some local business owners, former athletes, and a few anonymous donors. Then, just after sunset, a familiar figure walked through the doors. Same calm presence. Same quiet confidence. Tom Brady. Dylan froze for a moment, unsure if he should approach. After all, would Brady even remember him? But as the line moved, Brady looked up, caught Dylan's eyes, and smiled. "Pizza guy," he said with a soft laugh. "Told you to keep showing up." Dylan laughed, too. "I did." Brady paused, then reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, a folded slip of paper, similar to the one he'd given Dylan before. Only this time it was blank. "Now you write something," Brady said, "for someone else." It wasn't a command. It was a passing of the torch. In that moment, Dylan understood. The story wasn't just his anymore. It was meant to be shared, carried, multiplied. Brady didn't stay long. He never liked being the center of attention off the field. But as he left, Dylan felt something powerful settle inside him, a mix of gratitude, clarity, and responsibility. Some people change your life with grand speeches and bright lights. Others do it with a folded note and a belief in what's possible. Years later, Dylan would still keep that first note tucked safely inside a keepsake box, edges worn, ink fading, but message stronger than ever. He never became famous. He didn't go viral, but he became something just as rare, someone who showed up for himself, for others, every single day. Whenever someone asked him about meeting Tom Brady, he didn't talk about football. He talked about presence, about kindness, about seeing people, really seeing them, even when the world doesn't. Brady may be known for rings and records, but to Dylan, he was the man who reminded him that greatness starts in the quiet, in the ordinary, in the moments no one sees, and sometimes that's where it matters most. So, what happens when a teenager delivers pizza to the greatest quarterback of all time and doesn't even realize it? You get a story not about celebrity, but about character. Tom Brady didn't need to impress anyone that night. He wasn't looking for recognition, and that's what made his quiet act of encouragement so powerful. A $100 bill could have meant nothing, but a handwritten note, filled with belief, meant everything. For Dylan, it wasn't about the money. It was about the message, about a reminder that greatness is not in how loud you are, but in how deeply you see others and how generously you believe in them. This story reminds us that even the most extraordinary people carry within them the power to make ordinary moments unforgettable. And sometimes, it only takes a folded piece of paper to change a life. So let us ask you this. What do you think was Tom Brady's most defining moment? Was it a Super Bowl comeback? Or a pizza delivered on a quiet Tuesday night? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And stay with us, because in our next video, we'll explore another incredible story that proves how resilience can change everything.